When you're tired of playing follow the leader, it's time to head out on your own and experience one of scuba diving's greatest pleasures, shore diving.
There comes a time in every diver's life when one more pre-programmed follow-the-leader dive on a crowded dive boat is quite simply too much to take.
Shore diving puts you in control. You can explore a new dive site every single dive, or pick one and dive it over and over until you know it better than the fish.
So join us as we shuck off the chains of boat diving and dive masters and dive our brains out. We hope that you and your brains will join us.
Permanently moored like a liveaboard dive boat 50 miles off the north coast of Venezuela, the boomerang-shaped island of Bonaire has been popular with divers since 1962. And it's Bonaire's shore diving that keeps them coming back year after year. The unique design of Bonaire's leeward shore, shallow reefs and deep sloping walls just a few yards from shore, has given this island its world-famous nickname, the home of diving freedom. With unrivaled 24/7 access to over 60 shore dive sites, Bonaire lets you satisfy your urge to submerge wherever and whenever you want. There are no Chinese fire drills as 20 divers bomb the water at once, scaring fish into the next time zone. It's just you and the ocean and all the diving you want. Grab a tank, or 2, or 3, or 4. Suit up, jump in, blow bubbles. The open ocean isn't a theme park with shows at 10, 2 and 4 o'clock. Best always depends on the time of year, whether or not the site is open, and what's currently happening with the marine life, who often pick up and move on. So talk to the dive masters and find out what are the hot sites during your time on the island. Whatever site you choose, you'll find 4 types of shore diving. The calm leeward shore in the middle of the boomerang, the desert south with its currents, the rocky north, and the wild Atlantic.
We're going to go dive one of Bonaire's new shore dive spots, Fisherman's Hut. They're always finding new dives to add to their mega list here in Bonaire of 60 plus. This one is in between 2 dives you may be familiar with, White Slave down south and Red Slave. Fisherman's Hut, we found a nice little sand chute right through the rocks, piece of cake shore entry. Let's go see what we see down there. In the shallows, we were surrounded by a school of mackerel scad, who were attracted by our bubbles and swirled about us for several minutes like a living breeze. When confronted by a predator, in this case a pair of barjacks, the sardine-like fish form a polarized school, a defensive technique in which the fish swim in the same direction at the same speed. This helps prevent a predator from picking out a single target, except for the slow and the confused. Don't let this great barracuda's apparent disinterest fool you. It's an act. Like all fish, his main goal in life is to eat and procreate. His sharp teeth can sever a victim's body in a single strike. Then he circles back to pick up the pieces. But barracuda present no threat to divers, despite their Hollywood reputation. Fish Hut could be renamed Anemone City. These animals hide their bodies in recesses and then extend their tentacles. Avoid contact, of course. Their stings can produce a mild skin irritation and certainly don't add to the animal's health. Another please don't touch, the shy porcupine fish. It's no longer acceptable to harass them until they blow up like a balloon. And off the deep slope, Bonaire's signature tube sponges, hundreds of years of growth, fingering the blue. Fish Hut. Sardines, barracuda, and barjacks. Doesn't get any better than that. Now, imagine waking up one morning in your hotel room, walking to the dock and going for a dive. Simple as that. Imagine no more. You're in Bonaire, the shore diving capital of the world. When you're shore diving, you never know what kind of entry you're going to get. We're going to be practicing one of the most common entries in scuba diving, the giant stride entry. Whether you're new or you're an old salt, you always need to practice the basics. The first thing you want to do is inflate your BC just a little bit to make sure you don't drop to the ebony fathoms when you jump in. The second thing you want to do is make sure that left arm or right arm, your choice, cradles those gauges really close to your body. You want to avoid impact on those delicate gauges. The third thing you want to do is place your palm against your second stage and your fingers against your mast. You check below. Is it clear, Pete?
It certainly is.
It's clear. Pete, stride to the sky. All right, my man, you're off.
Hey.
I think I'm going to join.
Bonaire isn't a large animal destination. Its beauty is the great diversity of the small fish and invertebrates that make the coral reef their home. To appreciate this world of macro critters, you need to alter your diving and the way you look at the reef.
That's right, Pete. Go slow, learn habitats, and take a slate. Then you're ready for a great advanced shore dive, Invisibles. What makes the site so special is its double reef system, which runs parallel to shore. Each reef tops out at 40 feet with a sand channel between them at 80 feet. After the second system, it's just you and the blue, good buddy. You begin the dive as usual in the shallow sand plain, but soon your finning takes you to the first reef ridge and a narrow sand chute that bisects it. At the bottom of the chute, you level off on the channel that separates the two ridges. The graceful, waving motions you see are brown garden eels feeding in the plankton current that runs between the two ridges. Across the Garden of the Eels, the next ridge materializes from the gloom, and soon you're at the shallow edge built by plate coral and great star coral. At the bottom of the next slope is one of the Invisible's great sights, the fans and bowls of scroll coral, which first started growing here back when Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492, and over the years have sent its spiral plates down the sides of the reef slope like shingles on a roof. Its edges are fragile, thin as potato chips, where one errant kick can destroy what nature needed centuries to compose. And what's a healthy Caribbean reef without a 12-pound spiny lobster resting up during the day for a night of hunting? When the computer says it's time to get shallow, you pick one of the many sand chutes and head back up it. When you're back over the shallow reef heads, be sure to watch out for the parrotfish expelling a stream of sand to form the new reef floor below. Back at the sand channel that separated the two reef ridges, we were about to encounter a school of palmetto. They're a member of the jack family, but they have several key enhancements. The long fins that trail behind them like memories, all that's left of your dive on the Invisibles. More great shore diving in Bonaire right after this. This morning we're diving one of the Caribbean's best wreck dives, the Hilma Hooker. Joining me is co-host Pete Fuller, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the importance of good wreck diving techniques for the recreational diver, which simply means no penetration. One of the first things we recommend is planning your dive and diving your plan for a wreck. This means as you go down that anchor line or that mooring line, which most wreck dives have, you first get the big picture, the overall view of that wreck. And then once you're down there, you inflate your BC, you're ready to go, make sure you got a plan. It could be circular, from bow to stern and back, or you could be going to a specific point, photographing it, enjoying it, and then heading back on a 180 heading. But your compass is not going to be any good down there. as well as your bare hands you should think about too, right, Pete?
That's a great idea. I mean, it's very easy to shred your hands up down there with all the loose pieces of metal that are on the wreck. If you don't want your hands to look like two pieces of tenderized steak, then it's a really good idea to wear gloves, don't you think? And also with the fact that there's lots of metal often hanging off the wreck, keeping gear nice and tight.
Absolutely. This is the place where you want to have your tight configuration. If you're ever going to have your hoses close to your body, this is it. We've seen too many divers down there get snagged up. Do those three things, you'll enjoy your dive. The Hilma Hooker is an 80-foot cargo ship scuttled in 90 feet of water. She's a good bit from shore, so it's usually best to surface swim out to the mooring lines, one each at the bow and stern, to begin your descent and dive. On a big wreck like the Hooker, you want to have a clear dive plan, usually a circumnavigation with a few stops here and there to check out points of interest. The Hilma Hooker was a cargo ship carrying contraband when it was confiscated here in Bonaire, 25,000 kilos of marijuana that were burned on the island. Other points of interest include these windows on what used to be the bridge of the ship, or a tall boom that once handled the loading and unloading chores and is now a long, thin reef with encrusting sponges, black coral trees, and fish that homestead here. For the past few years, a family of tarpon have called the Hooker home. They rest here during the day and roam the reef at night to feed, often aided by the lights of night divers. Tarpon are a beautiful, noble fish with stainless steel scales and a reputation among fishermen of being one of the sea's most fierce creatures when on a hook. After working your way shallow, don't miss the photogenic propeller up here at about 40 feet before you turn and begin your swim back to shore.
I tried to do a shore dive at Boca Bartol one morning, but it was way too rough. However, David gave it another shot. At the north nub of the island of Bonaire are 13,500 acres of rugged, arid land dotted with scrub, cactus, wild goats and divvy trees. Welcome to Washington Slagbine National Park, which occupies fully 1/5 of the entire island. This wildlife preserve is the first of its kind on the Caribbean area. No camping, hunting or fishing allowed. But there is one thing you can do in Washington's Slagbine Park, some of the world's most adventurous shore diving.
Welcome to Wild Bonaire. I'm with Jenny Marchena, who's a dive instructor, dive master at Captain Don's Habitat. Today she's going to help me make a very important decision, and that decision is whether or not to do that advanced shore dive right out there called Boca Bartol. As you can tell, Boca Bartol is characterized by some pretty serious wave action. And that's the first thing you need to evaluate at an advanced shore dive like this, the wave action. Remember three things. Waves always look smaller when you're standing up here. The second thing you need to remember is waves come in sets of three. So we're going to walk down there and we're going to get level with the waves so that we can see actually how big they are, and we're going to observe a set of big waves. And the third thing, current. And that's why I've got an expert like Jenny Marchena who's going to help me evaluate these conditions. Jenny?
Yes.
Let's go check it out.
Okay, let's go.
Uh-oh. What's happening here is that an experienced Bonairean dive master is telling a tourist visitor how the cow ate the cabbage. She's seen something she doesn't like. Well, we're back from evaluating the conditions. The waves were pretty strong. We felt like we could make it through the waves and get in okay. But Jenny saw something that you need to pay attention to, right, Jenny?
Yes, that's the surface current. Of course, if you go diving here on the way back in, you will have a problem because you'll be bumping into the shore instead of coming in very nicely. So we decided not to do it.
That's right. The surface current you can see whenever a wave lands, and if you see the water doing this after it lands, this is what Jenny taught me today, that means you're going to have a significant current coming back in, and that's not a good thing. So we called it quits. Sometimes as divers, we have to know our limits and not let ego get in the way of common sense. Too many divers have had too many accidents because of an inverse ratio of common sense versus machismo. Don't let that happen to you. Today was a no-go for us, and that's the way it should have been. You know, one of the great things about diving in a place like Bonaire in the Washington Slagby Park is that you don't have to spend your surface interval eating lunch in some tourist trap. You'd hardly call this goat pen a tourist trap. As you can tell, the guy carved out a trough for his goats to drink water from right behind me. It's a divvy tree. Made us pen out of the dried stalks of the caduceus and yucca cactuses. The thing about this, the kids on Bonaire, they use these dried pieces of wood to make their kites. So the next time you go traveling, I want you to take time to go fly a kite. Well, the currents and the waves at Boca Bartol a little bit too much for us today. No problem. That's how it is at that site sometime. But when we come back, Jenny and I are going to get wet at Boca Slagby. So you stay right where you are. Jenny Marchin and I are about to make our beach entry here in the Washington Slagby Park. What we've done is found ourselves a nice flat sandy area so that when we go in we don't do any damage to the coral reef on either side of us, because this is the Bonaire Marine Park and we don't touch. So what we've been doing is talking about the 2 or 3 things that we're going to practice in order to make a safe, comfortable beach entry. First thing we're going to do is to walk out to our place in about ankle to knee-deep water, wherever we're safe from the waves, and then we're going to help each other put our fins on. She's a great diver. I'm an experienced diver. Never let that get in the way of using your buddy. After we put our fins on, we're going to back into those waves. After backing into those waves, we're going to look for a time, inflate our BCs a little bit, dive in and go for it. That way we'll be safe, kicking our way out to the mooring. You ready to go, Jenny?
Yes, ready to go. Let's go.
Let's gear up. Boca Slagby is a great place to observe a variety of fish behaviors. Like this midnight parrotfish about to dump about a quarter pound of sand after digesting reef rocks and extracting nutrients. If you're an ocean surgeonfish picking at algae-coated rocks, beware of the small but feisty damselfish that protect their algal gardens and will attack almost anything. Even video cameras. Watch this 3-spot damselfish warn us off, then go back on guard for the other intruders she knows are coming. These sergeant majors are being cleaned of parasites by the juvenile hogfish flitting about. When this parrotfish arrives, it signals its readiness to be cleaned by hanging still and vertical. French angelfish are usually seen in pairs, a male and female that usually mate and remain monogamous for life, unlike most humans. The pair then sets up housekeeping in a defined area of the reef to live out their matrimonial bliss. The stealthy trumpetfish hides in sea rods, waiting for the unsuspecting prey to happen by while orienting its body with the waving rods. When it's lunchtime on the reef, you might find busy commuters like this white-spotted filefish doing some takeout action with a piece of sea fan that it eats while on the go. And at the end of the day, you'll almost always see an aggregate school of surgeonfish forming a long commuter train that zips along the reef at Amtrak speed and then down to their hiding places deep below the reef face. Beach exit. You just saw a fine example of some buddy work, I'd say. We did our dive. We came up outside the break line just like we planned. We sighted our landmark right here at the back of the truck. Inflated our BCs a little bit, everything going to plan. Then we entered the break and started kicking. Then we hit the shore and we basically became a couple of beach toys, as you can tell. Bouncing around, got a lot of rocks. I enjoyed the rocks. How about you, Jenny?
Yeah, well, was pretty cool.
Didn't you love the way they ground right into your hands and your feet and your face?
Yes. And your pants too.
And your pants too. As you saw, I lost a fin. My dive buddy Jenny, dive instructor, dive master Jenny, had already gotten her butt out of the water. Managed to save one of my fins. Thank you, Jenny.
You're welcome.
And we completed our dive. Shore exits. Sometimes not everything goes to plan because this is Mother Nature.
Oh yeah.
Now, before you head out on your own shore diving adventures, Pete Fuller has come up with an innovative way of carrying gear that he calls bagless diving. Let's take a look.
Welcome to my office. Today we're going to look at ways that you can consolidate your gear. If you're not always diving with a dive bag, you're on a boat perhaps, or you're adventure diving, you just want to keep your gear together. We're going to call this bagless diving. First of all, you've got your BC, spread it nice and wide open like this. Then you want to make sure that you keep your fins together, and at the same time you're not going to lose your mask. So if you put your mask over the end of your fins, pull that down, so you keep everything together like that. Place that in the middle of the BC, then get your octopus. Make everything nice and round like that. Put that together. Lay that flat in there as well. Now to keep everything together, it's a good idea to put the wetsuit in on top next. Fold everything inwards. Do up the buckles. Make sure everything's nice and tight. And then last but not least, get your weight belt. Here on top. Nice and tight. And off you go. You've got yourself a portable gear bag without a bag. We hope you enjoyed the dives.
Please join us next week on Dive Today. Until then, dive safe.
And dive often.